Welcome to Gaia Gossip. I'm your host, Mary Jane Oatman. This episode honors Women's History Month by celebrating Indigenous women as leaders in preserving cultural heritage, reclaiming their power, and sustaining the planet. It highlights matrilineal wisdom, community leadership, and the transformative power of storytelling in fostering resilience and equity. On today's show, we're going to have a brief message from her Many Voices president, Tamara Cantave. I'll have a chat with Alicia Fall, founder and vision holder of Her Many Voices, for our community conversation segment. And also, Alicia and I will welcome Scheril Murray-Powell, Esquire, who is a prominent legal professional specializing in agricultural, cannabis, dietary supplement, regulatory, and trade law. So let's get going and let's hear from Tamara.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tamara Cantave. I am the board chair of Her Many Voices Foundation, and I'm coming to you from Virginia at this moment. And what I want to talk about today is my passion for what we do on this earth and how this earth, Mother Earth, means everything. I am the daughter of a minister of agriculture, so which means that Mother Earth is in my blood. Before I can even understand what it had to offer, I had a passion to protect it. And as I got older, I began to understand what that meant. And it means that we have to take charge of what we do on this earth. And so I am driven by doing everything that I can to protect it and to connect myself to everyone that is doing the same. And so it led me to Her Many Voices Foundation almost 10, wow, it's been more than 10 years ago. I met Alicia Fall, the founder, back in 2010. And I've been connected to her ever since and the work that Her Many Voices is driven to do. And so that work begins with protecting what Mother Earth means to all of us. And I have some driven passion to make sure that what I do is always connected to what Mother Earth can provide. And those are resources that we depend on, resources that keeps us going. And whenever we feel that we're falling short, we have to come back together and see exactly where we can pick up and move forward. And so today, I want to talk to you a little bit about what brought me into this field. And it's just to make sure that the ones who do not have a voice, who are less fortunate than most of us, can have a voice. And so I'm here to speak for them. I have been working with my community, which is the Haitian community. This is how I began my relationship with Her Many Voices back in 2010. It was right after the major earthquake that destroyed a big portion of the capital of Haiti, Port-au-Prince. And I have been working in bringing information to how do we prevent such disasters from happening again, and how do we help the folks who depend on Mother Earth. How do we help them to make sure that they have what they need to thrive? And so from that work, we have spanned the globe. We have traveled around to bring that awareness. We have connected women, children, community leaders all across Haiti into what that means and how do we protect it? How do we evolve? How do we bring it forth? How do we protect the future? And so today we are doing great things all around to do exactly just that. And there are so many other things that we're doing to make sure that Mother Earth is never forgotten. And so, what else is there to talk about? There are things that I, as the president of Her Many Voices, believe in, that we need to make sure that the work that we do is never forgotten. The work that we do continue to evolve. And so we have transferred a lot of what we do into bringing resources to folks who need to know exactly where they can get it from. Now, I am a financial educator as well. And so today we are doing things to bring that kind of information to folks all across the globe, mainly in the US, to make sure that they can thrive based on what they have in their hand. And so I am leading Indigenomics program that's there to at least lead folks into what their future could look like if they understand what they have in their hands. So a little bit of everything that we're doing is always making sure that everyone under the sphere of Her Many Voices Foundation is protected and thrives. And so it's just a little bit of what we do and where my passion comes from for this beautiful place that we call Mother Earth. Thanks.
Welcome to Gaia Gossip. It's such an honor and a privilege to be your host and represent Her Many Voices Foundation, and to be joined today by the founder and visionary of Her Many Voices Foundation to just share a bit about the organization as well as her vision about the future of this pathway of Indigenous women's storytelling. Welcome.
Welcome to you too, Mary Jane. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, I've been talking to you for a number of years now, and the idea that we finally have gotten to this point and we can work together is just filling my heart. Thank you.
It, as I mentioned earlier, is such an honor, but it's truly humbling to be able to have this type of unity with Indigenous sisters that are building bridges, not just here on Turtle Island, but across the globe. And that's one thing that you did for me quite a while ago, was lit a fire and inspired me to think about the Indigenous kinship relations beyond the boundaries, beyond the borders.
You know, when we think about Mother Earth, it's that connection for women, right? We are all rooted from Mother. We're all connected through her. And we have an obligation, as far as I'm concerned, to speak. The issues that are happening to her right now are not silenced. We need to recognize the power that we have as individuals in bringing light to the issues that Mother is experiencing, that all of her children are experiencing at this point. And I certainly believe as Indigenous women, we are here to lead a great deal of these stories.
Absolutely. Planting those seeds for the next generations.
Yes.
It is truly a privilege to be able to film today on the day of birth of my daughter, who really put a new light in my life as a mother. Giving birth to a young woman was pretty amazing, but she had shared with me when she was about 7 years old, and she's turning 12 today. But at 7 years old, she was like, Mom, when I was inside of your womb, your future grandchildren were inside of me. And I just thought that that was so powerful, that my little petite, my little young one, she recognizes that she is a giver of life, even if she has not even reached that moon cycle or phase or that coming of age in her life, that she recognizes that power, her matrilineal power, and vocalize that. So I give reverence to my baby girl's special day as well, and feel really honored to be able to share a little bit more personally about my life and the work that I do on behalf of our ancestors and our unborn generations.
Happy birth-giving day to you. Happy birthday to your daughter. And my daughter, my eldest daughter, always refers to our future ancestors. So the fact that your child at such a young age could express, when I was within your womb, those generational thoughts, I'm sure it's because of Indigenous ancestral knowledge that is just penetrating, right?
Absolutely. Those things that we feel in our DNA that are just genetically entwined within our thought processes, within our actions. They go back to those roots and that resilience. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited about our guest that we'll be talking with in a bit is that there's been so much bridging with the work that we all do collectively for Mother Earth, as well as one of our relatives, the hemp plant. And it's been one of those awakenings that I've noticed specifically within our Indigenous women and our women's network, to be empowered around engaging each other in these types of conversations, and even coming to a comfort level of being able to share so vulnerably with each other. That's one thing that I've noticed has happened since we've started this journey towards the plant. And one of the reasons that I was so honored to come across your work and the love and light that you bring into the Indigenous space with her Many Voices Foundation. I believe we met at NoCo Hemp Expo, and it was several years ago, and I was just blown away by the powerhouse team of women that you have built at her Many Voices, and just very, very much lit up by the force of the women's voices, the collective, and just still pinching myself that I'm a part of it. Then I realized the intentionality of what you do was so that I could be here. You had a vision for that. And
Mhm.
for that, I give thanks to you for your spirit of inclusivity, because in this strange time that we live in, unfortunately, as Indigenous women, I think that we've all noticed that we experience an unfortunate circumstance of lateral oppression and sometimes kinship violence amongst from learned behaviors. And I believe that programs like Gaia Gossip and visionary leaders such as yourself with the organization Her Many Voices Foundation, we do that work in that part to help eradicate that in our communities. So I wanted to say thank you for your work that you do to not close the circle, but make it wider and make more women and other humans that support women's spirit feel welcome.
What is the African phrase? When we rise, we work together, we rise together. And I feel that for women, we have to come together. We have to collaborate on behalf of each other, on behalf of our future ancestors, and on behalf of Mother Earth. She gives to us unconditionally all the time since the beginning of time. And we, as a human species, have taken too much. And I believe that as women, we have an understanding of what birth and rebirth and nurturing and nature is, right? So that's what Her Many Voices is about, is bringing those voices together in honor of Mother. The her for Her Many Voices makes reference to Mother Earth. The many voices are all of her children. Thank you for coming on board. Your voice is one that I have always felt needs to be out there as often as possible. People need to hear Mary Jane Oatman because you have such a strong message. You are here for the people. You are here for Mother, and you are here for our future ancestors. So thank you. And I'm very excited about who we have joining us today.
I'm excited for the whole season lineup of guests that we're going to have join.
Yes.
And I think that that's why I sit in this place so humbled and honored to be able to share the voices of those relatives that I've been able to cross paths with across Turtle Island and beyond, those healers and those makers, those artisans that are also doing the resiliency work and sitting in the love and light of our ancestors. And that's one of the other areas that I believe that the spirit of a woman brings into this fight for protecting our Mother Earth is a bit more of that harmony. I had an interesting situation where I had a tarot card reading, and the tarot card of masculinity at first offended me. And then I realized that I was in a place of protecting myself. And that was the energy that was emitted quite heavily during that time in my life for that specific place and time to protect myself. And I realized that I've evolved and I've grown so much now. If somebody would tell me, or if I did a tarot reading and I had a front facing card of masculinity, I would embrace that wholly and understand that energy just ebbs and it flows. And a part of that is to help us protect ourselves, protect our loved ones around us, and to be able to get through those difficult times. And that's another one of those areas where I see that programs like Gaia Gossip that it's going to be a little bit of light for someone along their pathway. At some point, I transitioned almost exclusively to podcast listening. And then I found myself finding that the most healing time that I have my podcast is when I'm taking a bath.
Mm.
And as I was taking one of my baths, I started finding myself feeling a little bit guilty about the swelling of the water. And I felt as though I was starting to participate in such a wasteful practice of filling up a bathtub and just lying there. And I had to give myself grace. I had to not beat myself up, that's how I heal. We all find these different ways of healing, but water for me has always been one of the times that I do my best thinking. In the shower, I get those big aha moments and do my best healing. But the Gaia Gossip concept, when you all first came to me, I will admit, and I'm going to just say it, that I had that similar reaction to I did with the masculinity card. Ooh, gossip in our communities, especially with our elder Indigenous women. It's just kind of one of those things that you don't do and you're taught not to gossip. And so I had to have an evolution of the concept even of gossip and decolonize the concept of gossip from the Western construct of the binary, it's a bad thing, naughty thing to do, and embrace it more in the context of what I've always known of my aunties and my grandmothers to do. Their gossip was preservation.
Mhm.
It was so much more than catty talk. And so that's one
Yes.
thing that I really, really, really loved, is that it also portrays the opportunity to just kind of talk about whatever and a little bit of this and that without feeling the parameters or the confines of a scripted show. And so with that, I wanted to just check with you to see what are some of the things that you're excited about hearing about from some of the guests as we gossip throughout the season.
Well, it's a combination. And I did have to think about the whole gossip title because we do have that, oh, yeah, that's a bad thing. That's not something you want to get involved in. But it's the Gaia Gossip, get the dirt on Mother Earth. So we're getting the stories of what's going on in the world, right? And also for me, it's get the dirt from Mother Earth. And so what I'm most looking forward to are those stories from around the world, from mostly the indigenous peoples all over the planet that are doing the good work on behalf of their community, for our future, for the preservation and the ability for Mother to really breathe and thrive the way she once did prior to our existence, right? So I'm really looking forward to those stories from the aunties, from the elders, from our children as well. The young people have a voice, they are being spoken to, and we need to listen. And I completely identify with the fact that you do some of your best work, those thoughts come in when you're submerged in water. For me, that's almost that return to womb. I get to heal. I get to take deep breaths. And then I get to tune in to what does Mother have to say? Where do I need to be guided? I need to listen to her. To me, that's the gossip, listening to what she has to say. So I know what's my next step. Who do you need to bring in front of me for us to do the work that needs to be done? You were one of those people.
Well, I do know that the power of being a voice in a bridge, I've never taken it lightly. And I was told at a very young age that that was one of my gifts. And it was by, one of our elders in our tribal community that also shared with me so much about my role as a matriarch of the Nimupu people. And one of those areas has been to do very similar work, almost like a junior understudy of you, Alicia, and being that bridge, because that's really where I found like my superpower is finding those healers that are
Mhm.
working in the soil and that are doing the rematriation work with plant medicine, as well as the concept of the restoration of the green buffalo, similar to the Lower Sioux Indian community and their housing
Mhm.
projects that they're doing, and the stewardship around building safer, healthier homes. And that all just came about from being a student of the plant. For the past 80 plus years, we have had a really unfortunate global attack on one of Mother Earth's greatest gifts and resources. And so, as we watch this evolution towards a capitalistic exploitation of the cannabis plant, often referred to as the marijuana, that I really do feel like it is our women who can restore some of that harmony and balance to make sure that it is not just a purely capitalistic approach in that rematriation, and that we have the opportunity to be able to take the seed work forward for the next generations to remediate a lot of the, I would say, unintended consequences that could happen with with this exploration. And I think a big part of that is just the education piece. It's been really great to be able to work with the plant and find those different stories throughout our Indigenous communities. And so I really feel as though the work that we do together is around the concept of rising rivers lift all canoes. And the more of us that are doing that work together in a collective, that the only person that benefits is those unborn generations. And I have absolutely no doubt that we are pushing back against the harms that we have already experienced, and seen in our very short time that we have here on Mother Earth, to be able to push back and do our part.
Well, I know that we have a lot of ground to cover over these next few months, but we certainly have a lot of ground to cover today with our first guest, which is Scheril Murray-Powell. And did you want to speak a little bit about Scheril before we bring her on?
I am a super fan of Scheril. I must admit that when you walk into a space and you know that there is a divine feminine
Mhm.
energy in that space without ever hearing anyone speak, and it almost feels to a level of intimidation. That is my very, very first impression or impersonation of Scheril. And then I heard her speak, and nothing but love comes out of that powerful voice. I
Yes.
have had the opportunity to work with Scheril for nearly 5 years in bringing equity and restoring more balance and voice for our communities of color that were impacted by the war on drugs. And so my original work with Scheril was really around cannabis regulatory and policy work. And
Mhm.
it was a good year and a half into our relationship where we both realized that our passion and focus really is around agriculture and around food systems, and with cannabis seed as a foods part of that food system. And so I really feel like the more that I get to know Scheril, the more I realize the surface, peeling back the onion layers, that there are millions of layers to Scheril Murray-Powell, and cannabis is just a very, very small layer of the work that she does.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have the same impression because when Scheril enters the room, the goddess has arrived. That is the impression. That's what you feel as she enters the room.
She is the definition and epitome of resilience, being in this wide world of cannabis advocacy and being a voice of the plant often comes with some battles. You get, as we opened up the show with, you get attacked sometimes for having a voice and having a powerful voice. And I have seen this phenomenal woman being beat down and stand tall with her shoulders held high and her head held even higher because of that purpose driven work that she does. And so I just know that the work that she has already done for Mother Earth has not gone unnoticed, but the work that she has in store for 2025 and beyond, I'm really, really excited to hear about, because a force to be reckoned with, but very, very much an ally of Indigenous communities and an uplifter of the Rastafari community and the sacramental plant medicine work that is shared and united amongst Indigenous communities globally.
Well, with all of that introduction, let's bring Scheril in. Scheril Murray-Powell. Welcome, Scheril. It's good to see you.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Scheril. Thanks for
Hi,
joining
Mary
us.
Jane. Hi, Alicia, my sisters.
I'm telling, this is it feels good to my heart. I met both of you ladies at, I believe it was at NOCO for both of you years ago. And
Absolutely.
I am loving the fact that we have developed this relationship. So thank you, my sisters, for being here, for leading the way for us. I look to both of you truly as leaders within this industry and as women who are empowered and telling their stories and making way for the next generations. So thank you so much. I don't want to hold you two up, so I'm going to bow out right now and let you have at it. Love
Well,
you
I'd like to
both.
reply and say that I'm merely a mirror of the love and affection that you've given over the years, and I've learned so much from you and Mary Jane as well. I just like to see us fire, energetic, futuristic women doing this great work together. You both look amazing, and we have lots to talk about. So I'm ready to get this started.
All right. Thank you.
Well, welcome, Scheril. It's so perfect to have you on the Gaia Gossip program, and specifically for our title, Roots and Resilience, How Women Preserve Culture and Sustain the Planet. I don't think that I know of anybody out there that has such an extensive resume for being a fighter for Mother Earth. And so it's truly an honor and a privilege to have you as one of our guests to be talking about the global efforts of the rematriation of plant medicine. And just like, again, I was pinching myself earlier because of just being invited into the Her Many Voices Foundation family to build bridges into other communities to share voices, but also just to be able to share stories of the phenomenal people whose paths I've crossed over the blessed work that we do together. So on that note, I wanted to say thank you so much for always being so resilient in the work that you do, because I'd mentioned it earlier in the introduction. I have seen people attempt to push you down and you get back up again. And it's like that Chumbawamba song, I get knocked down, but I get up again.
That's right. Oh, I love that song. I love that song. We are peeing the night away.
Absolutely. Well, I do know that you have very much been an inspiration to the work that
Thank you.
I do. And I shared earlier about the unity work that we have been embracing together around sacramental work for Indigenous communities, Rastafari communities. And I was saying, well, I know a lot about what Cheril's done, but what I'm excited about is to talk with you about all of the amazing things that you have that powerful mindset on for 2025.
Thank you.
And just also, I want to talk about where you're going to be because I want to be there too. How our listeners for Gaia Gossip can follow your work. So, to kick it off, let's just talk about what is that one big thing that Scheril Murray-Powell has going on in 2025 that everybody has to know about?
Yes. Well, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. And we've been on this journey for a very long time, you and I. And it's a pleasure, honor, and a privilege to call you friend. When we talk about the concept of roots and resilience, when you're talking about plant life, the roots are so essentially important. Knowing where the origin, everyone has an origin story, every movement has an origin story. And often it's the victors that get to write the story or what becomes his story or history. But with having strong, dynamic women like you in our industry and in our family, we get to write her story, right? Instead of his story. And we're the ones who develop the roots and strengthen the roots and build bridges and relationship with the roots. So that's why roots and resilience is so important because the resilience is what people see. Once a plant has come above ground and it can battle the elements and endure, we'll see that resilience. But what's really holding it in place are the roots. And that's why it's important that we build a strong root network so that we can support each other and strengthen each other so that we can survive any type of storm that comes our way. So the theme itself of roots and resilience is very, very, very important. When we're talking about plant medicine, I've always said plant medicine is indigenous medicine. And there's more of a focus on understanding indigenous community, integrating indigenous community, respecting indigenous community. And a lot of that is based on the efforts of yourself with regards to ICIA and the work that you've done with Rob. Heads up, hi to Rob, and a shout out, I should say, and also the work of her Many Voices, just constantly placing on people's minds the fact that there's this community that has survived thousands of years and have retained a lot of the original roots, the original practices. And as we're getting further along and more mature on what we call in Rastafari our trod, our journey, we're now looking to who's the next generation? What's next for my movement? How can I be the best possible steward for my movement so that when it's received by the next generations or the champions of tomorrow, that it's received in a way that they can just pick up the mantle and charge forward. With regards to what I'm working on now, the past 3 years for me has really been about succession planning and positioning myself so that I have so much autonomy and so much self-sustaining activity that I can speak truth and speak truth to power. So no finding myself no longer in a posture where I can be starved by opposing forces where they can say, we're not going to give you that money because of what you say. We're not going to give you that money because you're not playing along with us or you're not receiving our narrative and just regurgitating the narrative we give you. And that is very powerful. It is very empowering. And it comes with a great responsibility to show others how to do that and take the hits that other people can't because they are more dependent on the system. They are more dependent on those corporate entities for their sustainability. Anything is, if I can say anything about my right now is about memorializing what I've done, being the griot on the mountain, encouraging other people to follow their dreams and maintain their integrity maintain their integrity as their because you never know the person who's below you one day is going to be your boss the next day. The person who has zero money and they're in a deficit and they're asking you for a lifeline one day, will they be the person who's giving out lifelines the next day? So really trying to demonstrate that level of autonomy and integrity in the industry is where I'm focused. And there have been good days, there have been not so good days. There have been draining periods of time where it's not that I don't believe I can continue, but it's more disheartening and reflecting on, have I achieved anything? All of this contribution and giving and being that visionary, seeing what is possible. How much closer am I to what is possible? And that's what I reflect on. And that's how I choose my clients. That's how I develop my strategies. It's really about impact, long term impact to the the strategies that matter and will propel my people to their rightful place. And when I talk about my people, I'm talking about Rastafari people, I'm talking about my indigenous people, I'm talking my black and brown people, or the BIPOC people, they may say, underserved people, young people who are trying to figure out how they get a place in something that's already been institutionalized and already formed. That is where I take the days when I'm disheartened and I use that, I refine it into oil, just like Senegal is refining their oil for the first time in history by themselves instead of being dependent on Western powers to come and take their resources. That's what we can do individually as people. What capability do we have that we've been reliant on outside forces to refine or turn into some type of monetized product that we need to really invest in ourselves so that we can be self-sustaining, and then we can say, no, I'm not doing that. I was on a podcast a couple weeks ago, and that's where the podcast was going, was let's talk about what I have in my herb box. And then I'm listening to all these brands being spouted. I'm like, I'm not going to promote these brands. I haven't heard one black owned brand. I haven't heard one indigenous brand. I'm not doing it. I have to exit at this point because you're not going to use my name. You're not going to use my reputation that I've built to promote without there being any hint of inclusivity in what you're promoting. These brands that are your friends, but if they were really friends to my community, they would be supporting my community in a financial way and not just looking at us as consumers rather than producers. These are the lines we have to draw in the sand, but it takes being empowered and it takes being informed and educated and continuously insulating yourself by education and positioning so that you can make those very difficult decisions, win, lose, or draw.
Absolutely. So many things that you said have been like home runs, gems that I know our listeners are keying into. They're drawing spiritual energy from. One that you hit upon is very, very much near and dear to my heart. And I think that it was probably one of the things that connected us, and you didn't say it specifically, but when you're talking about leading with integrity, because I know you and I've heard you and I've seen you and I've been in this amazing spiritual energy space, our children help guide us towards that integrity. And I know that your amazing, phenomenal young King Judah does that for you. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't care what everybody else out there is thinking about me. I've got this young person beside me that is watching me.
Yes.
So when you're talking about leading with integrity, it is so much more closer to us than outside of us, that influence. And I think that's one of the biggest ways that our collective cultures have been preserved, is that as mothers, we have to be mindful of that, knowing that power of the sovereignty of the choices that we make for our children. And that was one of the things I think that was really difficult in doing this work. I'd originally thought, anyways. And then I realized, no, I come from these roots. I'm very, very much entrenched in these roots, with my grandmother having served time in federal prison for this plant medicine, and watching my own matriarch go down a pathway of being able to be resilient and provide in the legacy market. And then also realizing that I was also given those different gifts to be able to help do my part in preserving our culture to sustain those pathways. But it always came back to the reflection of, what are my children going to think about me? More than what anybody else externally in the cannabis industry or in corporate America. And it was my children that allowed me to lead with an unapologetic voice for this plant, because at the end of the day, I'm answering to the creator and I'm answering to my children. And so I wanted to just thank you so much for talking about that integrity, because it really, really is something that I think America is questioning right now. The global humanity is questioning right now, where is integrity in choice and planning for the future generations. It's not this I, me perspective. And that's what I love about the work that our women do in this advocacy work for Mother Earth, is we root that back to that connectivity. And so, Scheril, can you just tell us a little? We all know you're like this amazing
Thank
advocate,
you.
and you will fall on the sword for Mother Earth, but just keeping it real about SMP. What's something non-industry, non-work related that's going on in your world that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think just talking about Mother Earth and the matriarchy and being a mother, one, it comes down to balance, right? And when we're on the pathway to developing our careers, we become imbalanced a lot of the time as mothers because we feel we have a tremendous amount of guilt. So we're taking this time away from our kids, and then we're putting into this engine, and we're not sure what the results will be. But then we always feel like we're deficient, whether we're in the home space or we're deficient in the career space. And we have to learn to give ourselves. And that's what I had to do in this recent pivot, because part of my pivot is my son's 13, Judah. I want to thank you for the talk you gave to my Judah when he saw you at the Indigenous Cannabis Policy Summit, and just telling him, your mom's amazing. Your mom's, and it was a tearjerker for me to see myself from your lens, and for my son to see me from your lens. That's important. That edification that women have the ability to do for each other is very critically important, and really allowing ourselves to shed this guilt and just be drivers in all aspects of life. We're all going to fall short, but the guilt is really something that holds us back and leads us to make poor decisions. We need to think more in terms of balance and making sure that that we are taking care of ourselves. Two, that we are having balance in all areas of life, where we can change the weighting of that balance. There will be some times that are more career focused. There will be times that are more family or children focused. But it's about that homeostasis, about, just like the plant, about having that balance. Now, you mentioned, what am I reading? Well, I'd like to teach myself Amharic. So I have a book on an Amharic dictionary. Many people may know that the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated's international first vice president, and also the president of my local. I'm trying to prepare myself for the next phase of career and family by learning new skills. So I'm also reading this book, Making a Habit of Success. I don't know, move this way. And learning methods that can make you a winner. And to most people, they're like, you do so much, you're such a, but being a leader means continuous improvement and feeding into yourself. And sometimes and I think my last 10 years in this industry have been like, go, 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 go. It's like, when have I read a book? I barely read a newspaper and Facebook and things like that. So I'm putting myself in a position of discomfort so that I could be prepared for what's coming. And just like I was an early mover with regards to cannabis on both the legacy side, I would say, and the legal side, and as an attorney, I want to be an early mover on other industries that are emerging. This one book is called AI Power and the 21st Century's Greatest Dilemma: The Coming Wave. If it's the coming wave, I want to be a part of it, right? I've been focused on challenging myself in that way. I've given myself permission to enjoy social relationships and love and things like that. So I'm doing all the things that make me feel really good during this phase. It's preparing
Yes.
myself, my career, and my people for what's coming next. We see emerging industries all the time, but we don't necessarily have representation from our culture, from women, and how we get ahead of that is by getting ahead of it in education and making that time investing in ourselves and educating ourselves on what's next so we can have the representation. When the end of prohibition of alcohol happened, they weren't giving licenses to women. When the end of prohibition of cannabis, they weren't giving licenses to women. But with us as professionals, one, Mary Jane, Alicia, with them having this network of swift communication and empowerment, they can inform about what's happening next. Myself as a lawyer, when we're starting to see commercialization and contracts, I can inform my clients how to get involved when there's a big question mark because they've never seen anyone who's done whatever. They have no daddy, uncle, auntie who's done this before. But if I'm an informed attorney, I can say, well, have enough knowledge about it that I can support you. You deserve to be in this industry. And that's what we're doing for cannabis, and that's what we're going to do beyond. So when we see this new era of coming together of Indigenous community, facilitated by Mary Jane, facilitated by Elise, it is creating a pump of education which empowers and positions our community to be in leadership as these new emerging industries come out. And Mary Jane has allowed me to participate with the ICIA from the perspective of bringing together African Indigenous community with Native American Indigenous community and South American Indigenous community and Australian Indigenous community coming together. And maybe about 2 or 3 years ago at the Indigenous Cannabis Policy Summit, I said, this is where it begins. This organization right here, even though we're cannabis focused, is where it begins because Indigenous is our roots. Indigenous is where we found our resilience. And then if we just attach ourselves to the hub that is ICIA, Her Many Voices, where we have Indigenous communities to remind us of our traditional values, remind us of our traditional techniques and methodologies, and remind us how to avoid the harm that we've suffered in the past, then we can be forward thinking and embrace these new innovations and technologies by retaining the integrity of our past. So that's the very important piece of this type of coalition building that we're having right now. And even through this podcast, those of you who are within the sound of my voice, you attach as well. Attached to Her Many Voices, attached to Indigenous Cannabis Industry Association, whether it's become a donor, whether it's start taking part in the programming as part of the audience, or being a presenter saying, this is coming and your community shouldn't be left out. I want to present to your community. That is welcome. We see Mary Jane is nodding. That is how we coalition build for a richer, more progressive, and inclusive future.
Absolutely. I do believe that's how we all came together, was a greater spirit from the planners of NoCo to be more inclusive of Indigenous community and to build that relationship, and Alicia branching outwards to find others that are carrying forward the stewardship of the medicine and the Mother Earth message. And I was really lit on fire by the work that Her Many Voices Foundation does to reframe the messaging that does go out. But one of those that is pivotal to her Many Voices Foundation is what I do for others, I do for myself. And I really like that because well, I mean, it just kind of makes you think about that. You're board a flight and you get the protocol, and there's just protocol. And oftentimes, protocol is lacking in different areas of our life where it could bring some balance. But you think about the guidance of put the oxygen mask on yourself before you can help others. And as women, sometimes we fall away from that practice. We lean out of it. And if we don't have anything left to give, how can we continue to do for others? And that's one of the reasons I feel really blessed to know the sisters that I have is that we all take that intentional time to remind each other that if we're going to be able to persevere forward to do this work, that we have to have that self-care and we have to have the care of each other, check in on each other. We have experienced an extreme amount of loss in our different communities. Check up on your sisters, and we just really have more sisters to bring into the network. So that's, I think, what I'm most excited about with Gaia Gossip is that there are going to be other women and men that support women along this journey joining this work and sharing their voices. And that's one of the gifts that you have brought me, Sister Scheril, is that, I mean, there's some heavy hitters out there that have impactful voices. And I would not know who some of these people were if it were not for bridging a relationship with you and having you know that was your work to seed. And so thank you. Thank you so much for being a part of that inner circle of the Indigenous Cannabis Industry Association, and even more that inner circle of sisterhood that we have been able to create over this work. And yes, we have had to grow our thin a bit. We've had to grow our skin a bit thicker over the journey.
Yeah.
That the scars are very, very much shaping the future of the work that I know that I will leave behind, and that legacy that we leave behind, to know that perhaps they will not have to endure the same set of scars.
Yeah, the scars become art. They become art. And they're also a very necessary reminder because they will tell you that it never happened, but for the scars. But for the scars, you will be told what you experienced never even happened. So we give thanks for the scars. We are grateful for the experience. We are grateful for revelation of what's coming and revelation of how we can optimize self. We are grateful for discernment that is gained through spirit and gained through experience so that we can make better choices, make better decisions, and better understand what is for us and what is not for us. When we talk about reaching back to Indigenous, and again, with my work at the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated, Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated was founded by His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I, the last emperor of Ethiopia, who, and the last to sit on the Davidic throne, going back to David and Solomon and the Bible. The oldest Judeo Christian state in the world is Ethiopia. So when I'm talking about I'm learning Amharic, I want to be able to read these ancient texts and feel the power and the spirit through the ancient texts in original language because I can. What is our lifetime for if we don't challenge ourselves to do things besides acquire and enduring the rat race, going to work, coming home, going to sleep, waking up, going to work, coming home? There's so many experiences to be had. So I want us to really be emboldened. I say empowered a lot, but emboldened in choosing those experiences for us, but in a way that we give homage to those who came before us the language that came before us, the language we had before this, and really honor
Absolutely.
our right to access to that experience and the power therein.
Knox Queen. Yes, many stories again that are true.
Nishi.
I appreciate that sentiment because it was through Western academia that I was able to learn my ancestral language of many, many thousands of years here in this place. And it was through that journey that I had learned that the hemp rope is a part of the divine creation story of the Namipu people of the Columbia Plateau. And it is what rooted me so unapologetically in my journey as a plant advocate and in the work that I do in the restoration of the textile, not just the sacrament, but also the work that our women did to make the rope and to make the fiber. And in our way, our balance was thrown off when our women stopped making the rope. And so to be able to be weavers again is a goal and a vision that I've seen amongst my people in dreams that came from our ancestors, and it's happening. This conversation,
Restoration.
yes, this
Rest-
conversation is a part of that restoration. This unity with her Many Voices Foundation and the other Indigenous serving organizations that will all come to the table will all be a part of that, as are you, Scheril, in the work that you do for global Indigenous efforts.
Thank you. I'm in the process of purchasing my first plot of land in Africa, in Ghana, and it's very empowering to be able to again be return home and be welcomed and do good there. That's all of what's possible. And it's extremely rewarding to be able to conceptualize and make something like that happen and say, I deserve to return. I deserve to be here, but I also deserve to be there and return to my people and for them to educate me and for me to educate them, for me to bring innovations and technology and for them to discuss the innovation and technology that's happening right there on the motherland. And I mentioned Senegal taking back their refinement of their oil, and Burkina Faso taking back their minerals and ousting colonial France. These are things that are happening all over. There's like an awakening, there's a spiritual awakening that's happening that is reversing the detrimental impacts of colonialism. And why be alive during this time and not be a part of it?
Yes, that message of roots, I think, carries forward very prominently with the work that you're doing in. I know it will be inspiring for others who think of that reclamation of self and story and ancestry to the motherland. It will inspire hope for others to think and do the same and act the same. Again, there goes Cheryl Murray-Powell planting seeds.
Yes, we plant seed in the rich earth that is ours, Mother Earth, that belongs to us, and that we are good stewards for so that she can cultivate in us what the future, a vision for what the future can be and should be. We're planting those seeds. There's nothing like being in soil, taking your shoes off and being grounded in the earth, being grounded in the dirt. Some people have never done that. Some
Just
may have done it with grass, but just earth and where things are planted. They call it virgin soil, where there's no chemicals, it hasn't been abused. These are experiences we can still have. It's important, that restoration.
yes, and one of those experiences that I really am excited about. I have so many visions of planning forward, My daughter turned 12 today. And as you were speaking, I'm like, one of these days I'll have my little granddaughter's hand and I'll be doing that activity with her. And my daughter's 12. You know, she's in transition in many different aspects right now, but those are the things that I love to think about that keep me inspired for that future. Also understanding and knowing that we're not promised a tomorrow. None of us are promised a tomorrow. Today in this light and the gift of breath for this day that we were given, I give thanks to you for sharing so freely and so openly from your heart. And that's what I love about the Gaia Gossip is we're going to have a lot of heart talk, and we're going to probably have some times where that heart talk is uncomfortable, but through that uncomfortable times, I do know that we will experience an extreme amount of growth as we move forward with the season of gossip and getting into the dirt with Mother Earth.
Yes. And I look forward to our conversations and resetting the balance with regards to men and women in those relationships. Because the sisterhood, there's a lot there to uncover, but also there's been a perversion of the relationship we should have with the other sex, and how we can move forward in partnership and balance as it was written, as it has always been traditionally, where we can move forward and understand how we work together in business with men and make them better and make them participate in a way that is not harmful, how we work in romantic relationships with them, how we insist on friendships where we are allowed to have just friendships with male counterparts and things like that. So I think there's a lot to uncover within the maternal conversation, the mother-daughter relationships, and some of the perversion that's happened with those and the disconnects that has happened between mothers and daughters. I've experienced it, and I've been blessed with a brand new relationship with my mom in the past, I would say, year to 2 years that I'm grateful for. But those are things that we'll get a chance to discuss and really level set and restore those relationships, because that's where the true power is, everyone being unified. We are one. An African concept is the power of one. And even biblically, when you look at the different appendages and functions, when you look at your hand, the different fingers on one hand, we all come together as one. There's a concept called harambe. It's a Swahili word meaning we pull together. And there's a harambe chant that we do during Kwanzaa, and you reach your hand up and then you say harambe, harambe, harambe. And that's what we're doing today. We're all pulling together in unity.
Thank you, Harambe. Thank you again for joining us for Roots and Resilience, How Women Preserve Culture and Sustain the Planet, with our guest, Scheril Murray-Powell. It was such an honor and a privilege to be able to have a catch up with Scheril, learn what she has going on and her plans for activation for Mother Earth moving forward. And as always, of course, just the opportunity to be able to just sit with Alicia Fall, the founder of her Many Voices Foundation, and just share a little bit of the unity work that has transpired since her and I both met at NOCO. Also interesting to learn that NOCO was where Scheril and Alicia met. On that note, I think that everybody should go to NOCO this year and meet new people. Her Many Voices Foundation is going to be vibrant and present at NOCO, as well as the Indigenous Cannabis Industry Association. And so we thank you all for honoring our women across the nation and beyond for Women's History Month, and invite you back for our next episode of Gaia Gossip, where we will be exploring more conversations about the rematriation work that's happening for Mother Earth, and also the power of hemp and regenerative practices, healing the earth together with some special guests. So join us for our next Gaia Gossip and stay tuned.
Thank you again for joining us at Her Many Voices Gaia Gossip. Remember, whatever you do for another, you do for yourself. For more information, head over to hermanyvoices.org to learn more about other programs and get involved. From all of us at Gaia Gossip and Her Many Voices Foundation, thank you, and until next time.